went very fast over this Gemara, so I want to go over it at least outside. Well, I also want to touch upon a few things that we've been discussing. One of the points, actually, David on Friday mentioned about the Steinsaltz has a different word than the regular Gemara. The regular Gemara
means
the word Sedukim,
Right.
and the Steinsaltz has the word minim. And I wanted to just shed a little light on that interesting difference. So the first thing I guess we'll start with is let's start with that. So the Rambam brings in the Laws of Chuva, chapter 3. So Maimonides, the Laws of Chuva, chapter 3. He talks about these names: Minim, Apikorsim, Keiferim, and in Keiferim he talks about Sedukim. So what are these three types of people? So there are 5 people that are called Minim, he says. And I see on the side they try to explain what the word where does the word Minim come from. So the early Christians referred to themselves as Ma'aminim, the faithful ones. That's how they used to call themselves. So the rabbis, as a joke, as a scorn to them, they shortened it to minim, like sorts of deviant behavior. So that's the term minim. It came from the early Christians. It came because our way of referring to the early Christians who were basically deviating from the Jewish faith. And so anyway, that's where the word comes from. What are the 5 people? So the Rambam says the 5 people who are called minim are a person who says there's no God, there's no ruler to the world. That's number 1. The second type of person who's called a min is a person who says there is a ruler, but there's more than one. There's 2 or more rulers. 3 is one who accepts that there is one master of the world, but he has a body or a form. So that's the third type of person called a min. The 4th is one who maintains that he was not the sole first being and creator of all existence. So he's saying that Hashem is not the first, the source, the creator of all existence. And the 5th is one who serves a star, constellation, or other entity so that it will serve as an intermediary between him and the eternal Lord. Each of these 5 are called a min. So it's basically not accepting Hashem. And then comes the term apikairos. The word apikairos is in the next law of the Rambam. The Rambam says 3 individuals are called apikorsim. And the term apikairos in Aramaic means the lack of appreciation for authority. Another translation is from the word hefker, which means free for all, similar to that idea of not accepting authority. What are these 3 people who are called apikorsim? Who are these 3 people? So one is one who denies the existence of prophecy and maintains there is no knowledge communicated from Hashem to the hearts of man. So that's against prophecy. What?
Atheist?
Doesn't believe in prophecy.
Oh, okay.
An atheist would probably be a min, would probably be in the first category, the minim.
I think apikoros comes from a Greek word, which means somebody who's a glutton, who likes to eat, who eats and eats and eats.
Do you know Greek?
He's looking on the internet.
Uh-huh.
It is I
I don't know that every computer is
who brings forth the Greek.
So you looked it up, and what did you find? That it means someone who likes to eat?
I didn't look it up. I have heard it many times over the decades.
That's the word Epicurean, someone who likes to eat. It's a different definition.
Who likes to eat.
Right. But not an Epicurus, which is a different word, I expect.
Okay, close enough.
Okay.
Interesting. Okay, that's a very interesting. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah.
I didn't. But let's see if that fits here. So number one is someone who denies prophecy. Number two is one who disputes prophecy of Moshe, our teacher. And number three is one who maintains that the Creator is not aware of the deeds of men. Each of these three are called apikoros. So Hashem doesn't know what we do. So this is all, in a certain sense, removing the authority of Hashem, that he has that there's a prophet, that there's Moshe, that Moshe Rabbeinu was our teacher and our teacher, and he was a prophet, and
our leader.
Hashem doesn't know what we do is also, in a sense, getting rid of any responsibility, any feeling of obligation. Okay, yes, Robert.
The question I have is this in the context of Jews, or is it both Jews and not? What's the context that we're using these definitions of fellow Jews or others? So it's within fellow Jews, right?
It would be within Jewish people, yeah.
Yeah. Because part of what my thing again is what do we call the goyim, which are either idolaters or idol worshippers, which is a very distinct separation from a Jew who doesn't believe versus those we perceive who again worship to idols. That's part of what. Yeah,
right. So you're right. You normally wouldn't call a non-Jew a min. You would call a Jew a min.
Yeah.
A Jew would be called a min. A non-Jew or an apikoros. A Jew would be called an apikoros. A non-Jew is they're called worshipers of idol worship.
Right. So for us, it's the dilemma of Jews who are non-believers that have to be educated as to the reality of what it means to be a Jew and the responsibilities. Okay.
Right. And then the third case is someone called a Keifer who denies Torah. Keifer means denies. So he denies Torah. And there are three individuals who are considered one who's a Keifer, a denier of Torah. Number one is one who says Torah, even one verse or one word is not from God. And if he says Moshe made these statements independently, he's denying the Torah. Number two is one who denies the Torah's interpretation, the oral law, or disputes the authority of its spokesman, as did Sadoik in Baitus. So this is the source of Tzedukim. The Tzedukim are people who didn't accept the oral law. They deny the oral Torah. So the Keifer is someone who denies either a pasuk in the Torah that doesn't come from Hashem, he says, or he denies the oral Torah. And
Rabbi, I'm confused. The Saddukim don't accept the written?
The oral Torah.
Oh, the oral. Okay.
I was at a Tzeddukim shul in Israel, and they do not light candles on Shabbat. They do nothing at all that is involving the oral interpretation. They say that there is no, you cannot light a light at all on Shabbat. There are many things they did or do that are different, and their holidays are different too.
Right, right. I wonder how they put tefillin on.
Are they real Jews?
They think they are.
Right. We discussed this a little, and we didn't get a final conclusion. Like, I don't know what their rules are. If they've, if it's possible that they've intermarried, but it sounded like from what people were saying on that they hold they're not allowed to intermarry. So it sounds like they might still be considered Jewish. They just are non-believers. And I wonder if they've transgressed any laws about incest, because they only marry within themselves, and they don't follow our interpretation of Torah law. So I wonder if that could have caused them to be considered mamzerim. Maybe they might be called mamzers. I don't know. I guess we could look into this. Robert, you said you wanted to look a little more into it.
Yeah, I haven't done it, but but Tzedukah, essentially, that's another name for the Karaites.
I think so. Yeah,
I'm looking that up now, and that's essentially what they said, that they.
So what happened was the Tzedukim, they did not like the fact that there's no reward for. They didn't like. They mistakenly understood that there's no reward for following the Torah. They got angry. Now they were mistaken.
This is what they call themselves, Karaim.
Right.
Right. So the Tzedukim, it started. The term was. I don't know. The Tzedukim in the Baitusim, what happened was they started with there were two people, Tzadok and Baitus, and the term became Tzedukim from the word Tzadok, from the name Tzadok, and Baitusim from the name Baitus. They were both friends. They listened to a lecture, and the lecture implied that they mistakenly understood in the lecture that there's no reward for doing Torah and mitzvahs. And what the mistake was that there is a reward. You're just not supposed to do everything for the reward. You're supposed to do it because it's right, because this is how you serve Hashem, not for the reward. But they mistakenly thought that it means there is no reward. And therefore they started this splinter groups which rejected core Jewish practice, and they coveted material wealth. And what they found was they could not convince the majority of the people to reject the Torah entirely. So they adopted a different tactic. And that was that they said the Torah is true, but the oral law is just human invention. And this was their way of getting people away from the performance of mitzvahs. Now, so basically, we use the Torah. Anyone that denies the Torah and its traditions to be called Tzedukim. But that's the origin of it. They basically were swaying people away from Torah.
Rabbi.
Yes.
The other problem is if they're denying the oral law, that means that all their conduct regarding marriage and divorce, which is explained in the Gemara, they're not observing any of that. So all their divorces are not proper, and then subsequent marriages are not proper. And
right. It sounds like they would have a lot of mamzerim, which is bastards. In other words, because if they're, people would be married twice, they might have women who are married to two husbands. And they might have women who never got a full-fledged divorce from the first husband. And so that woman who's married to a second husband, if it's not a kosher divorce, so that means the children from the second marriage would be considered bastards, and they would not be allowed to marry into the Jewish community. So again, let's just summarize what we have here. So we have the minim. There are 5 types of people who are called min, and that basically are, we said it started from the original Christians, and basically they didn't believe in God or the ruler of the world. They believe there's more than one God, or God has a form, or he's not the first being or the creator of all existence, or there's a star, a constellation that serve as intermediary between him and Hashem. So all of those are called minim. Then you have apikorsim, and those are people who deny the existence of prophecy, and they say Hashem doesn't speak to people, and if those who dispute the prophecy of Moses, our teacher, and then the third case was
Rabbi.
One second.
Sorry.
The third case is one who maintains that Hashem is not aware of the actions of people. So those three are called apikorsim. Yes, David.
I was going to say that I thought that apikorsim implied that a person learned Torah and then denies it. It's not just some dummy on the street who doesn't know Torah. It's that he learned Torah and denies it. That's why I think the Rebbe said that these days there's not apikorsim, because there are not people that are learned enough in Torah in order to deny it, or something like that.
I think the term would be Keifer. I think that would be more the correct term instead of apikorsim. I guess you could look it up and find out what the term that the Rebbe used. But in any event, here the Rambam uses the term apikoros mainly for either that Hashem is not aware of our actions, or it's like the relationship between Hashem and people, prophecy or our actions. And then the term Keifer is really denies that any word, that anything from the Torah is not from Hashem, or denies the oral law, which is similar to the Tzedukim, and which is connected to the Tzedukim and the Baitusim, Tzeduk and Baitus. And then the third thing, these are called Keifer. And then the third thing is one who says that though the Torah came from Hashem, Hashem replaced one mitzvah with another one and nullified the original Torah. Like this would be similar to the Arabs and the Christians. So
what about the Samaritans?
I believe that they are similar to the Karaites, who are the Tzedukim. I'm not sure, right? Aren't they the ones who claim that's the Karaites, right? Are they called the Shomronim? Anyone know? I believe they're the same. It's the same family. It's the same group.
We're talking about ancient times, though, correct? In ancient times.
There's a group. There is a group now in Israel, and as Raymond said, he went to one of their synagogues that denies the oral Torah. It's a very unsuccessful group. I mean, they don't have a huge following, but they have there's a small, and supposedly there's a lot of sickness there because they only marry within themselves, and it caused that their body of the body of genes is so limited that it causes much sickness. That's what I'm told among them.
Their daf yomi share must be very short.
They don't have any. There's no Talmud for them. They have no Talmud. But I don't know. I've never studied their religion. I'm just telling you that it's there is groups in Israel. I think in the city of Shechem, and maybe in Haifa. Where was the place you went to, Raymond? Raymond, you're muted.
Yeah, I think it was Ashdod.
Right.
Ashdod,
There's a citation saying they're in Ashdod and in Ramla, and there are approximately 30,000 Karaites presently in Israel.
Wow, I'm surprised at that many.
Yes. And it says, I can't find anything that says that there's ever been denial or recognition of them and being Jewish, but they're there, and obviously they have selective ritual that Torah Jews.
Right. Okay. So I think that So I think we clarified these terms. Now the Rambam continues with another term called a mummer. and a mummer is an apostate. And they could be a mummer for one sin, or a mummer for many sins, the whole Torah, and the term is used someone who has made a practice of willfully committing a particular sin, and where he is accustomed to committing it, and his deeds are public knowledge. So this is
Is the word does the word come from a mum, which is a was a blemish on an animal?
I don't know, because there's a resh in it, so I don't know if you could say that's the source of the word.
Rabbi Smith,
Yes.
as far as I know, Mumar is somebody
Like,
who changed his religion.
Right. Hey Meridasa, you're right. Hey Meridasa. Right. Like Tamura. It probably comes, that's good. It probably comes from the word Tamura,
I don't
which
know what
means
word
to
it comes from.
Tamura means to swap. And maybe that's the word. Mumar comes from the word Tamura. I think that might be it. Thank you for bringing that up, because it made me think of that. Okay, so yes, Robert.
I guess the one question is, if I remember, this is again stories that one can never essentially regard themselves as not a Jew. Once you're a Jew, in the eyes of Judaism, you are always a Jew, and you will die as a Jew.
Right, for sure.
Yeah, all right. So even though they want to be, we call them apostates because they reject us, they can't ever get out of their birthright, quote unquote, of being a Jew.
Correct.
Their best efforts. Okay.
So this is the thing. The Gemara here is talking about the prayer in the Shemona Esrei, and the prayer in the Shemona Esrei is a paragraph against the La Malshinim Alti Sikva, the Malshinim. A Malshin is someone who rats on someone, who gives people in. That's a Malshin. Tells the government about someone. And then it talks about the meaning.
An informer or a snitch.
An informer, a snitch. Okay,
Snitch.
Yeah.
an informer. And all the minim should be totally destroyed. So if you think of that paragraph, and that's the paragraph that was added into the Shemona Esrei, so what we're really referring to are the early Christians who were causing suffering to the Jewish people. And so it really should be the minim. And the term the Gemara uses is the tzedukim. Now the tzedukim, we don't know that they were causing so much tsaris to the Jewish people. They were causing, because they were just promoting that, the oral, it's not part of that prayer, at least. It doesn't say tzedukim in the prayer. It says so it says a lot of terms, but it doesn't use the term tzedukim. So because of that, the understanding of that is that the Talmud was printed in Christian countries, and they did not allow us to write minim because they knew what minim meant, and therefore we switched it for tzedukim. So the Steinsaltz is correcting it now that we live in a free press, free country. So therefore the Steinsaltz corrected it to the minim. That's what the original prayer was. That's what the prayer is about. It's about the minim and those that were causing us a lot of tsaros. And we prayed to Hashem that they should be destroyed. So that's the reason why he switches it back to the minim. Okay, so that sheds a little light. Thank you, David, for bringing that up.
Rabbi, say that
Yes.
again.
Our Gemara, if you look on the bottom line of the Talmud, the bottom line of the Talmud, 28b, it says the word tzedukim there. In the Steinsaltz, he switches it to the minim, And the reason is because our Gemara was censored in the early years. Our Gemaras were censored. They wouldn't have allowed us to write minim because they knew, they believed that you can change history if you remove it. But they were very wrong because we got everything back. We have these Gemaras that were called Chasrenes Hashas, but they thought that they could rewrite history if you burn all the books, So they used to censor the Gemaras. And therefore, the rabbis changed it to tzedukim so that they wouldn't remove it. But ultimately, we know that it was really the minim. It should have been the minim, the blessing of the minim. Okay, so that yes.
I wanted to say I was told that the prayer was added in the period of the Greeks. That in the period of the Greeks, the Jews were telling on the other Jews that didn't follow the Greeks' ways.
That could be that there were Malshinim in that time, the Hellenists.
At that time.
But that doesn't mean. I would have to look up, and maybe Isaac has the book. When did Shimon HaPikuli live in Rabban? Well, it's in Yavne. So we're dealing with. I mean, the time when this bracha was made was somewhere in the 2nd century. Right.
I'm sorry, I'm on the road, Rebbe.
Oh, no problem. Okay. I believe it's the 2nd century, and the story of the Greeks was a few 100, 200, 300 years earlier. It was in the time of the second Beis Hamikdash. So we're dealing, so it seems like you're right that there was a time when we had an issue of Malshinim, but that wasn't, that's not what we're dealing with here. Here we're dealing with the Romans. And
they added the prayer later. They didn't add it at the Greek time because
they didn't add it at the Greek time, right? They didn't add it.
They added it later.
At the time of the Greeks, we murdered the Greeks. We won with Hanukkah. Then we murdered them. Right. Time of the Romans, we were exiled, so we had to make prayers against them. But it wasn't just it wasn't against the Goyim as much as it was the Jews that the minim, the early ones who were Jewish. Okay, so in any event, that's one point here. Another interesting point is that the Gemara in Megillah asks a very strong question. The Gemara there says that the Anshe Knesses Hagdolah established the 18 brachas of Shemona Esrei. And here the Gemara says Shmuel HaKatan was Masake in front of Rabbi Gamliel and Yavne. He was Masake the bracha of the Tzedukim. So it says Shimon HaPikuli made he set up the 18 brachas before Rabbi Gamliel and in Yavne. And Rabbi Gamliel asked does anyone know how to establish a new bracha called the Berchas HaTzedukim, which we're translating really to mean Berchas HaMinim, and Shmuel HaKatan established it. Now, the question the Gemara Megillah asks is Shimon HaPikuli, did he establish the 18 brachas in front of Rabbi Gamliel and Yavne? They were established by the Anshe Knesses Hagdolah. Anshe Knesses Hagdolah is the men of the Great Assembly. There were 120 great rabbis over a long period of time, but they all together were called the men of the Great Assembly. Mordechai from the story of Purim was part of them. Ezra was part of them. They were all part of the Anshe Knesses Hagdolah. They were much before. They were during the time of the destruction of the first Beis Hamikdash. And so that's when we had these 120 great rabbis. And Shimon HaPikuli, and was it Yavne? He established the 18 brachas. And additionally, how is it possible that that people didn't remember them? The Gemara answers that people forgot it, and the Gemara says he reinstituted it. because people shakchum, they forgot it. The question is, how could people have forgotten it? So, in other words, the Gemara asked this question, and the Gemara says, how is it possible that Shimon HaPekuli did it if it was already established long before? That's the Gemara's question. The Gemara answers that people forgot it, and Shimon HaPekuli reinstituted it. The question is, how could he have reinstituted it? How could people have forgotten it? Didn't they remember? Didn't they say it every day? If they said it every day, it seems surprising that they would have forgotten. How could everyone forgot it, and you needed Shimon HaPekuli to go establish it again? So this is a strong question that they debate. Well, the rabbis try to deal with the debate. I mean, they try to figure out what could it be. How could it be that you needed Shimon HaPekuli to establish it? So, how could they have forgotten it? I did see an explanation from I think it was the Ben Yehoyada. Just pull it up over here. Oh my. Wow, it's going slow.
So where are we?
I'm just pulling up right here. It's Gemara and Megillah, page 18. And my internet must be very slow. I don't know why it's taking time. I've never had this before.
Maybe a storm is coming.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
can I tell you this interesting note that it says in the Steinsaltz?
Of course.
It says that although the members of the Great Assembly instituted the formula of the individual blessings, each individual recited only those blessings relevant to him, according to Talmidei Rabbeinu Yonah. Alternatively, perhaps there was no definite order to the blessings, says the Chayfetz Hashem, and Shimon HaPekuli came and established a definite order. Arranged in order indicates that one who failed to recite the Amidah prayer in that order did not fulfill his obligation. Al-Fasi Zuta.
So that's great. So we have two explanations from that David just shared with us, and the explanation of Rabbeinu Yonah, very interesting explanation. Thank you for sharing it. Is that not everyone said all the brachos, and what it seems like. But what Rabbeinu Yonah says is that each one only said the bracha that they needed to say, and Shimon HaPekuli went and established it that everyone should say all the brachas, and then you mentioned Chayfetz Hashem says that he made the order of the brachos. And the Ben Yehoyada, finally it pulled up over here. He says that it must be that Shimon HaPekuli, he explained the reason for the order. In other words, they even knew the order. He says they knew everything. They said it, but they forgot the reason behind it. So Shimon HaPekuli, he was explained the order. That's what it means. Shakchum v'chazav v'sidrum is he explained the order of them. They had forgotten the order.